Now let's hear viewpoints from both sides of the aisle. We welcome back Austin Barbour and Brandon Jones to the MPB studios. Austin's a Republican strategist and founder of the Clearwater Group. Brandon is an attorney and a former Democratic member of the Mississippi House. Gentlemen, good to have you back, as always.
Thank you.
Let's start with the ballot initiative process. We've talked about this a number of times over the years now. Austin, tell us about this House concurrent resolution that seeks to restore it.
Yeah, Constitution Chairman Price Wallace has been working on this bill for months. He sort of flew through his committee, of course, since he's the Constitution Chairman. I anticipate that it will be brought up on the floor next week. It has to, I guess, because of the deadlines, and I think it'll get overwhelming bipartisan support in the House. It has, pretty much always lived on that, with both Republicans and Democrats supporting it. Chairman Wallace knows the issue. It's a fair process that will allow Mississippians to sort of regain, to regain their constitutional right that was taken away by the Mississippi Supreme Court post the medical cannabis statewide ballot initiative that happened in the 2019-20 timeframe. And this is not sort of the top issue for every Mississippian. They're thinking more about the economy, taxes, immigration, but this is an issue that a lot of people do care about. Speaker's always been very supportive of this. It's been at the top of his list. I anticipate it'll pass the House. The Lieutenant Governor has always said he's for it, so is the Governor. So we'll see what happens. But step one, got to pass the House floor. It's a good bill. It's a fair bill. It's a reasonable bill in terms of the number of signatures that would be required to put an issue on the statewide ballot.
Well, we have this discussion each week so that we can trade ideas, and sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. Austin and I have both talked about over the years since the Supreme Court took this away that restoring the ballot initiative is important.
It's in the Constitution.
And one thing unique about this season is I find myself disagreeing with some of my Democratic friends in the House from time to time. Still great friends, and we'll see how it all plays out. But Austin, I hate to hear that the chairman worked hard on this because I don't think it's a good product. This, to me, strikes me as something out of a Republican think tank to check the box off for addressing the ballot initiative issue without really restoring the ballot initiative issue. And here's why. Under the old constitutional right, voters could put on the ballot something that became a part of the Constitution. It was a constitutional amendment, so it couldn't be changed by the legislature in subsequent years. This doesn't do that. This is statute only, so this is a very different animal than what we formerly had. This would mean you would still spend the same amount of money to put something on the ballot that you did in the old days, perhaps more, because the threshold for signatures is greater and the requirement to get something to pass is greater. So it's harder, more expensive, and the legislature can undo it.
You're right. This was constitutional only in the past. A lot of states have constitutional or statute, so where you could say, hey, we want to make everybody wear blue shirts on Friday, we're going to put that in the Constitution. Well, that would be ridiculous to put in the Constitution. We want to put that in statute. That's a different deal. States across the country have both options. Look, it is about what can get passed in the Mississippi legislature right now. You can go over there and say all you want, this needs to be in the Constitution. I just don't think there is the will of the bodies in both sides to do that. Therefore, I think this is a really good step to give the people back a right to put something that's important to them on the ballot.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think if that's the case, then just don't do anything, because what happens here is no one is going to go to this cause.
Fair point.
No one's going to do it.
I mean,
that's the thing I would say. What I would say to the chairman is, tell me who you have spoken with that is going to run an initiative process under these circumstances.
Yeah. Well, I doubt that honestly, I doubt that he's spoken to anybody who's going to run an initiative process, because that's not those people are not knocking on his door right now. He's trying to just say, hey, look, let me get the process back out there so that whomever it is in Mississippi is going to come forth with that. And I think that's fair for him. I think he's just trying to do what he thinks is right, and I agree with him.
The logical fallacy here is that...
Don't use words like fallacy.
The reason for the amendment, the reason that you make it in the Constitution is not because people think, oh, all these various items should be in the Constitution. The reason is exactly what we're identifying.
Yes.
It's because you're taking action that the legislature has failed to take that is popular with an overwhelming group of voters. And so that's the problem they have here.
5 seconds. I think that we would both agree, I hope, there should be a process for putting something in via statute and the Constitution. I don't think blue shirts on Friday should be in the Constitution, but if that needs to be in statute and the legislature won't do that and the people want it, let's go try that.
Well, I recall when the medical marijuana issue was first proposed as a constitutional amendment, there were people who supported having the right to get medical marijuana, but did not think it should be in the Constitution. And the only way the people could make it happen was to put it in the Constitution.
Excellent
and then that was disqualified on a technicality.
And let's just keep in mind, that's the challenge of the initiative process. The initiative process is for those things that are overwhelmingly popular that the legislature will not pass. So it's not perfect, but it's an imperfect answer to what you do when your legislature is obstinate. But guys, I mean, look, it's not going to get used. No one is going to spend that money for something that the legislature can undo the following year.
I disagree. It won't be the following year. There'll be a safeguard in there. Right now, the bill is for 2-year safeguards. Gosh, we're really digging into the weeds on this. Pardon the pun there of medical marijuana. But it could be a 3 or 4. Anyway.
More to the point. Hot take on the way out.
Oh?
Senate's not going to take it up.
We shall see. The lieutenant governor.
There's not a lot of appetite.
The lieutenant governor has
for
said
it.
he's for it, but we got to get it out. Got to get it out of the House first.
Senate's always been an issue on this one.
But we'll see what happens.
There was a big deadline this week for bills to pass out of committee. Let's talk about some of the bills that you have in mind, the ones that have sort of flown under the radar that we'll probably hear more about later on, but that we haven't heard a whole lot about yet. Brandon, let me start with you.
Yeah, there's a great bill, I think, that has to do with how we report domestic violence deaths, which, people are increasingly aware that domestic violence is an issue that stretches across all demographic groups and is a major issue throughout the country. And one of the problems that you have and that shelters have reported is that we don't have great reporting on when these incidents occur. And so there's a House bill that's moving in the Senate now that would allow for greater reporting of when something is a domestic violence related death. And this is all very important just for how you police these things and how dollars flow to help the agencies involved respond and the shelters respond. So, anything that makes domestic violence less likely is a good thing. And this would be a step in the right direction. The other one, Wilson, that I think of is a bill that got a lot of fanfare, even national fanfare at the beginning of the session, and we talked about it here, a bill directly sent to us from the district attorney of DeSoto County, who wanted to make bounty hunters out of the general population on the immigration issue. Really glad to see that bill die, and I hope it also leads to him not getting elected next time.
Well, we know nothing is ever truly dead at the legislature until the session's over, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. You have plenty of little mechanisms for bringing things back.
Austin, what about you? What bills do you think have not gotten the attention that maybe they will or deserve?
Well, Senate Bill 2472 is a bill that is
Numbers.
Well, yeah. Get on your computer. 2472. It is a bill that is authored by Judd A., chairman of the Senate, that Bryce Wiggins. It will sort of take us back down the memory lane to the tort reform battles of the early 2000s. And essentially what this involves is agriculture, farmers, the chemical companies that sell the needed pesticides to our farmers who have to use them to survive in today's farming world. Versus the smart plaintiffs bar who have found a legal lawsuit loophole that they're very successfully taking advantage of, not just in Mississippi but throughout the country. It's a fascinating debate. There are darn good arguments on both sides. He's the lawyer, I'm not, and we don't have enough time to do this. But I think you're just simply this is about agriculture, farmers in Mississippi, and I've actually picked up the phone and called some folks I went to high school and some cousins who are farmers and like, how do you function? How do you operate without the pesticides that you use every day? And they go, we don't. we can't survive. So they see this as a really, really big issue. Lawyers, Republicans and Democrats that I've talked to have really good arguments about this. It's a fascinating bill. It probably will come up on the Senate floor next week, and I can't wait to watch it.
Your lawyer friend on the left here, have you had a chance to look this over, Brandon?
He doesn't like it when I say it, but Bryce Wiggins is a good friend of mine. But this is a terrible bill. Look, it's about accountability, and it's about what happens whenever Susie gets cancer or whenever you have known carcinogens pumped into the system and you have no recourse. We can't continue to. I know that Republicans hate regulation and they want you to get your cancer and to like it. But the truth is, we cannot just keep creating no accountability zones. Monsanto can do this differently. They're not doing it because of the price point. And so what we're saying is, you're too big for us to worry about the cancer you're giving us, so we're just going to let you off the hook for us. And the case being made for the simple farmer who just couldn't possibly do their job without allowing cancer to seep through the community, that's a quaint, silly thing about something that's a serious issue with serious accountability problems.
Absolutely. But there is no entity in the world that has ever said that the chemical that's in this, glyphosate, causes cancer. So it is a fascinating debate, and he and I could go back and forth for an hour on this. And I didn't even know he knew anything about this, but he's a smart guy, and I can't wait to watch how it goes. And it'll be an interesting debate that really does take us back sort of to the early 2000s and a lot of the debates we had about tort reform.
You heard about it here first on that issue. In our remaining time, let's talk about this bill that would have that would have gutted the state auditor's powers. Austin, what happened with that?
Well, Senator David Parker had a bill that he said in committee, and he said on the floor that got on his radar based on a local elected official in DeSoto County who had some issues with the state auditor's office. And I think Senator Parker said, hey, I think we need to put more restrictions on the state auditor's office. Obviously, the state auditor felt differently about that. And ultimately, Senator Parker this week, Senator David Parker of Olive Branch decided this week, I'm going to table my bill. And he said, I'm going to table this bill. And what table means is we're not going to bring it up for a vote, even though it passed committee, based upon some legal theories out there that you may be interfering in jury selection, jury tampering, something like that was, I think, what he used. So it was an interesting, bill to watch, some fights, some arguments, and ultimately it did not move. I mean, look, I don't know all the details about the bill. I want the state auditor's office, if it's this state auditor, the next state auditor, the next state auditor, to be able to go out and do their job without sort of restrictions, whether it's Republicans or Democrats or independents or some party we don't even know exists today. Yeah. That may be dictating them. Sorry I was long-winded, Brandon.
We've gone too long on this program without talking about our state auditor. He's the most colorful statewide elected official in the state. He's very online. If any of our listeners tweet him today and you say something he doesn't like, he will tweet you back. It may even go on through the weekend. I mean, he has endless time to donate to any online fight. My free advice, no one's asking me for, to legislative Republicans is that what works inside of the Capitol dome doesn't necessarily work once you get outside of it. And what I would say is, yes, our auditor is clearly a prickly figure. He's clearly made enemies amongst other statewide officials and other state legislators, but he's playing to a particular audience that probably likes all this controversies that he's stirring up. And every legislator that elevates him is doing just that. Anytime you make the day's news about him, he loves it. Yeah. Throw him in that briar patch. If every senator over there wants to file a bill limiting him, that gives him more to tweet about. It gives him more to have a press conference on, and I'll bet he's eating it up. So I would just say to my friends over there in the state legislature, be careful because you might be elevating this guy.
And I trust what David Parker said. He said, hey, this is about an issue that happened back in my home county, and that was the genesis of this bill. So take him at his word. He tabled the bill. The bill is dead. As you said, nothing's ever dead over there.
Austin believes. Let me tell you about Austin. He believes legislators.
Well,
that's what we're saying.
I'm always honest and transparent with people, and I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're going to be honest and transparent with me until they prove me wrong.
We'll let that be the last word. Austin Barbour, Brandon Jones, Thank you, as always. This has been At Issue, a weekly discussion about the 2025 Mississippi legislative session. You can hear At Issue every Friday night at 6:30 during the session on MPB Think Radio. You can also subscribe to our At Issue podcast, which features extended versions of our roundtable discussions and featured interviews. If you'd really like to see what we all look like, you can catch the video versions of our roundtable and interviews at mpbonline.org and on YouTube. At Issue is a production of Mississippi Public Broadcasting. I'm Wilson Stribling. From all of us at MPB, thanks for joining us.